Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's TheSketchMonkey here. I'm here at Aston Martin Denver to have a look at their most powerful SUV ever produced, and that is the DBX 707. That means that we have 707 metric horsepower. That translates to 697 US horsepower. And I think this is one of the best looking supercar SUVs out on the market today, and it looks fantastic. I need my shades because this white pearl is just flashing into my eyeballs right now, but it is a beautiful looking design. So what we're going to do in this video is have a look at the front end design and this massive big grille that we have in the front. Take a look at the gorgeous side and the send-off that we have in the rear, and last but not least, take a look at this interior that has this very light blue tone to it. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And then we're going to take this for a drive. Let's have a look at some of the basic specs of the Aston Martin DBX 707. You have a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 with a 48-volt hybrid system, putting out 697 horsepower, 663 pound-feet of torque. This is connected to a 9-speed automatic transmission, and of course you have all-wheel drive. 0 to 60 miles per hour is done in 3 seconds with a top speed of 193 miles per hour. Fuel economy sits at 15 city, 20 highway, and the price for this is $210,000. Starting with the front end design of the DBX 707, what I think Aston Martin did a fantastic job with is translating their already every single car in their lineup is a stunning piece of art. And what I think Aston Martin did well here is to translate that philosophy into an SUV package, which is not an easy thing to do. So we do have the same type of styling in the hood up here like we have in the coupes. I love these vents up top, functional air extractors for the hot air underneath with the carbon fiber fins up here as well, looking fantastic. Moving further down, we do have a blacked out Aston Martin badge in the middle. You can get this in a lighter trim, or you can have this almost silver. I personally, specifically with the white, I think the black grille works fantastic with the white color. And this grille, yes, it is a huge whale mouth of a grille, and this is the biggest grille that Aston Martin has ever put on a production car, and I think it's pretty easy to see that. Up here you do have the front mounted camera, which is useful in a truck this size. What I love about the front end of the DBX 707 here is that everything here, all the vents you see, even the entire grille, is all functional. So everything is open, even to the very far corners of this grille. And then you have the additional vents going underneath here still. Everything open all the way around up until this point where you have the beautiful daytime run light right here, this LED strip that is also the indicator, as you can see right now. Moving further down, you do have this beautiful carbon fiber front lip as well. Nicely done, and I think carbon fiber, in addition to the overall black plastic trim or trim pieces that we have overall in the front end, it works well together because of the darkness of the carbon fiber. It feels like it melts in with the rest of the graphics. Looking at the Aston Martin DBX 707 from a straight front view, it's clear just how big and wide this front end grille is. I do love the shape of the headlights here. This is typical Aston Martin, where the headlight sits flush with the body and follows the overall shape and the surfacing of the surfaces around the headlights. Aston Martin has just always had this unique ability to always make their cars look fantastic, and that comes with the SUV as well. Coming around to the side view of the DBX 707, I think, in my opinion, this might be my favorite view of the DBX because I love the proportions of this thing. Everything is just perfectly laid out in this side view, in addition to these big 22-inch wheels. So you have 3 25mm wide tires in the rear and 2 85mm wide tires in the front, and both are 22-inch wheels, which look fantastic. I would probably not spec this in black. I'm not sure. Usually when the car is white and the rest of the graphics are black, I'm okay with having it black wheels. But in this case, I would probably spec them out to be a little bit lighter than this, so you can see the design of the spokes in the wheels themselves. Now, we have to take a minute to appreciate the line flow that Aston Martin put into the DBX. Just have a look at this gorgeous shoulder line, starting almost on top of the hood, then follows going above the door mounted side mirror. I love that the side mirror is mounted on the door and not here in this triangle of the window. This looks so much more sporty. There's also carbon fiber trim pieces going here and on the cover for the side mirror. But continuing this shoulder line, you can see how it dips slowly down into the gorgeous ducktail in the rear end. And what this does, it creates a movement for this car. If you look at this from this view right now, it feels like it just wants to be pulled forward, and that has to do with all the lines that we have going on in the side view. Another line that has a huge impact on the volumes of this car is this line down here, and how it swoops up into this functional air curtain that you have right behind the front axle, and in addition to these carbon fiber pieces up here. Just a beautiful cut. It looked like someone took a sword and just carved out this surface of the car and creating a lighter feel for this overall mass. Another detail that helps with reducing the mass of this car is that you have the carbon fiber pieces down here, and you also have the blacked out side skirt reaching pretty far up, and this also eats out some of those volumes that we have inside view of the DBX. Coming around to the rear end of the Aston Martin DBX, and there is some craziness going on in the rear end of the DBX, but I love it. It's crazy in a good way. So first of all, have a look at these taillights. These look very Vantage inspired, almost like they took the same taillights that you have in the Vantage and totally copied it into the same type of ducktail that you have in a Vantage as well, and putting that onto an SUV. I think it's such a cool feature, and it definitely makes the DBX stand out from other SUVs that definitely do not have this type of ducktail in the back. I think it looks beautiful, and if there was an award for the best send-off of a design from a side view, it would go to the DBX and the Vantage with this ducktail. In addition to this pretty substantial ducktail that we have right here, we have a 3-wing setup in the rear end. So we have 3 different wing solutions here. Up top we have this roof spoiler that is also pretty substantial, sticking out. You have a hole here so you can see my fingers, very functional, and you also have this carbon fiber piece on the very end of it, which I like. Moving further down, as we talked about, this ducktail right here with the integrated taillights looking fantastic. And again, you have the blacked out Aston Martin badge, and if you don't know what this badge is, it already says it in the badge, but it says it even larger down here, Aston Martin across the rear end in gloss black, looking fantastic on top of this white. And as we move further down, you have another type of wing at the very bottom end of the DBX, and that is this diffuser. I don't think I've ever seen a diffuser stick out this much. It's just crazy how far out this sticks out, but it does have another wing attached to it in the lower section, so it all serves a purpose to suck the rear end down to the ground when you go at speed. And on top of that, everything here is black again, like we have in the side view. It carves out some of the volume in the rear end with the quad. I would call these bazooka tailpipes in the rear end with this slanted cut to them, looking fantastic in matte black. Some people have said that this is a little bit overkill, but I think for the normal DBX it probably would be. But for the 707, this is what you want to have. You want to have some additional pieces like this to make this feel special. Looking at the DBX 707 from a straight rear view, it feels like it's a sumo wrestler squatting down with these big fenders on the side, and it almost looks a little sad or crazy with these taillights. It doesn't have an aggressive rear end, but it feels like it's more functional than aggressive, the rear end design of the DBX 707, and that's what I love about this car. And again, now that the sun is out, you can clearly see this pearl white, and I love how this contrasts with all the black graphics and carbon fiber that we have going on the exterior of this car. Welcome to the interior of the 2023 Aston Martin DBX 707. Let's fire this up and turn the AC on. Let's keep it in as quiet mode as possible, which I would assume be either individual or GT, but just have a look at this styling that we have in here. This baby blue interior with the white contrast, and also you have a darker blue stitching. It's a very unique interior. This overall, this trim, this spec feels very light with the white exterior and this baby blue interior. So what do we have when we talk about the gauge cluster and the infotainment screen? We have a 12.3-inch fully digital gauge cluster, and we have a 10.3-inch infotainment screen. And the integration of this infotainment screen, let's talk about that for a second, because we have very organic, rounded, almost classic Renaissance style styling for the dash right here. And then you have a very square 10.32-inch infotainment screen, but I think Aston Martin managed to make it feel decently integrated in this design with everything that goes on around it. However, this is not a touchscreen, which is pretty interesting at this price point. Instead, you use this Mercedes-sourced dial in the middle to kind of figure out where you want to go in this infotainment screen. It's rather easy to use, but I would much rather have, it feels like this positioning of this infotainment screen is right where you want it to be, a touchscreen, because of the distance from the driver. But you have to use either this dial or you can use this trackpad up top, which I think maybe is a little bit easier to use than the dial. It feels natural, a lot more natural to use the pad up top than to use the dial, in my opinion, to change whatever you want in here. But the good thing about this not being a touchscreen is that all the buttons are physical down underneath it. You do have some very traditional looking vents. They are stylized in a pretty unique way with the two outlines for it in the middle, and then you have the knob right in the middle to adjust the on and off for the specific vents. And then you have all the controls here for the fan speed, where you want the air to blow out from. Very easy to figure that one out. I want some on my feet right now because they're starting to get very hot, so it's super easy to change that. And you have, of course, the temperature toggles here as well for the passenger and the driver. Now, if you've never been in an Aston Martin before, it could be very hard to find where the start button is. It's not anywhere in the center console. It's not anywhere next to the steering wheels either. It's up top here. So this is where you have all the drive modes. You have parking, rear, and the start button, neutral, and drive. So let's put it in park and see what we get when it comes to cameras. The camera is pretty high resolution with trajectory lines, and you also have a 360 view up top, which looks fantastic. Moving on to the center control panel right here, this is where it gets very nice with all the carbon fiber that you have. Gloss carbon fiber trim around it, and you have the buttons for the auto shut off engine and the hazards, parking assist and parking cameras, on and off for the radio, the exhaust button and lane keep assist. And if you want to lower the SUV, you can do that with this button right here. Right in the middle here, you do have the suspension settings, so how harsh you want the suspension to be. You also have the traction control button right here, on and off, but the most important dial is going to be this one in the center. So this is where you change the drive modes from terrain to individual, GT, sport, and when we put it in Sport Plus, you're going to hear the exhaust open up a little bit. Let's just open up the exhaust and see if we can get them to open even more than that. It sounds absolutely amazing, this V8 up front. We're gonna take a listen to that in just a second. You also have heated and cooled seats with these tactile, they're not really tactile, they're just touch buttons on an icon, and that's how you turn them on and off. So let's turn on the cooled seats here for a bit. Moving further down here, you have two cup holders in the middle, pretty normal size. And if we open this up, you do have a pretty large storage compartment in the middle with a couple of USB ports. You have a 12-volt and a memory card reader right here. So you might ask, where is the wireless charging located? Because in this price point, you kind of need to have it, and that is located right here underneath everything. So you have this big hole, and underneath, this is where you put your phone. Moving on to the steering wheel here, it has the same finish as the rest of this baby blue interior, which is very cool to see. I've never seen a steering wheel in this trim or in this spec. It looks great. It feels nice to hold. It's pretty thick, but one thing I would change here is, you see this darker contrast blue that we have on the dash? I want to have that on the inside of the steering wheel here as well, instead of the same blue that we have in the leather of the steering wheel. To the right side of the steering wheel, you have all the controls for customizing the gauge cluster. So whatever you want to see in the center of the gauge cluster, you just do that on the right side right here. You have also the controls for the radio, the volumes, and so on. On the left side, you have all the buttons for the cruise control settings. Look at these gorgeous pedals that we have here. If you're going to have a performance car, it doesn't matter if it's a sedan, coupe, SUV, whatever. If it's a proper performance car, I want them to be this long. And this is probably the longest pedals that I've ever seen in a car, and they're all carbon fiber as well. You can clearly see them underneath the spokes, and also of course sticking up above with the plus and minus sign, and they feel very snappy and nice to use. And they're also mounted on the column itself, so you won't follow the steering wheel as you go around the corner. To the left side of the steering wheel, you do have another little vent right here, and you have all the settings for the lighting control, and the parking brake is located here. Looking up top, you have a very big panoramic sunroof that I would keep open half an hour ago, but now that the sun is out, it instantly just went up 20 degrees. So I'm gonna close this thing, but it is wrapped in, it feels like suede or Alcantara, this cover for it. Moving on to the seats here, very nicely done. You have the perforated center pieces of the seats. You have the dark blue Aston Martin up here in the headrest, and you also have the same dark blue stitching on the sides. Nice bolstering, and this is of course power adjustable both for the driver and the passenger. Looking at the glove box, you might think that there is no glove box, because where is the handle for it? This is the weirdest opening button I've ever seen for a glove box. It's this tiny little knob right here that sticks out. You just press it once and it will open up a rather large glove box for the DBX. So let's jump into the back seat and let's see how I fit behind my own driving position. All right, jumping into the back seat of the DBX 707, and I have more than plenty of leg space back here. I do love that we have the carbon fiber in the seats in front of me. We have a small little vent in this panel right here in this bar, and you also have more vents down here with the third row climate control settings located in a small little display here. You can adjust the temperature, you can adjust the fan speed, and you also have heated and cooled seats for the back seats, in addition to two small USB ports and a rather flimsy looking pocket in the seats in front of you. If you fold this down, you're gonna have two cup holders just magically appear in the armrest right here. Alright guys, setting off in the 2023 Aston Martin DBX 707, 697 horsepower, 0-60 in this size of an SUV is done in 3 seconds, which is crazy. Under the hood we have a 4-liter twin-turbo V8. The way this gets more horsepower though is thanks to the 48-volt hybrid system that we have in this car. Ooh, it sounds good already. I can't wait to push this a little bit more and just hear that noise. Let's go into manual and let's see what this is all about. So the choice between this and the Ferrari Purosangue is a very difficult choice, because the Purosangue is a lot more expensive than this. But when it comes to styling, I'm not sure which one I would pick. Oh, do you hear those crackles in the shifts? Sounds fantastic. I have it in the firmest Sport Plus suspension right now, and I also have it in Sport Plus when it comes to overall drive mode, so it should be as sporty as you can get the DBX 707. You definitely feel every single imperfection in the road without a doubt when you have it. Of course, when you're gonna have it in the sportiest settings, some people still complain that the ride is too stiff, it's too harsh. Well, don't put it in, or first of all, don't buy a 707 if that's not what you're looking for. It just makes sense that it should be this stiff of a drive when you have it in the stiffest settings in a supercar SUV like this. It is ridiculously fast. It's just nuts how it can move this way with all the mass that is in an SUV like this. It's just incredible to think about. I don't think this would be possible 10 years ago to make a car like this or engineer a car like this. Let me know what you think about this interior with this baby blue and the white exterior. Personally, I love the white pearl exterior with the black graphics that we have. Not so sold on the baby blue interior. It is a very unique interior. It looks great if this is the color that you're into. I love that you have everything being the same color, but I would probably want to have a darker interior in contrast with the white exterior. All right, so let's slow it down a little bit into first gear and let's go. I can't believe I'm sitting in an SUV right now. It just does not feel like an SUV. I guess when it starts to feel like one, that you're sitting a little bit higher, is when you take corners at speed. Then you're definitely gonna feel the center of gravity sitting a little bit higher than you used to maybe. But other than that, I mean, it just goes like a sports car or a supercar. Yeah. It's a wild beast. keeps on pulling and pulling and pulling. Crazy how Aston Martin manages to make such a beautiful car, first of all, it's an SUV, and that they manage to make it perform like this thing does. It's amazing engineering and design from Aston Martin. And if you want it to be, switch it into GT and it becomes quiet, nice, comfortable to drive. This car has everything you want in an SUV when it comes both to performance but also in the practicality of it and the comfort. This is by far the most fun SUV I've ever driven. It's just a fantastic piece of machinery, this DBX 707. And huge thanks to Aston Martin Denver for providing this vehicle for me to review for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you click the link in the description to check out this car and their full inventory of awesome cars they have out here. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you in the next video.